Welcome, everybody. This is episode number 229 of the podcast, and this is our first official episode operating under our new name, Truth Telling with Elizabeth DiAlto. Originally, I was planning on having a dear friend interview me to help ring in the new name and to talk about the reasons why I decided to change the name, some shifts we're going to be making on the show, and due to a series of obstacles, difficulties, and delays, my friend was not able to interview me. So I'm here flying solo, and so for that reason, this is also an audio-only episode because it's easier for me to just have an outline and read from it, and I imagine it would be mind-numbingly boring for those of you who usually watch to watch me read my note in Evernote. So I'm not going to subject you to that, but we are going to jump right into things. So I want to begin by answering the new opening question that I'll be asking of all of our guests from now on. The question is, what's a truth that's having a big impact on your life right now? The seed to my answer was planted during my interview with Danielle Laporte last year during her book launch. One of the things I asked her was about getting haters. It's not really an experience she has a lot, and I don't really either. And I'd asked her why she thought that is. And her answer is something that really stuck with me and began to bother me over the course of the year. She said it's because, in a way, we're both preaching to the choir, meaning the majority of our audiences are already interested in what we have to say. We're not all up in the mainstream. And while I'm not against preaching to the choir, nor do I have a huge desire to be in the mainstream, I do have a desire to contribute to larger conversations that are considerate and inclusive of more of the greater human population. In other words, I'm tired of being a player in an industry that thrives on privilege and people's brokenness. I'm more interested in helping to resolve more pressing collective issues that also impact us on an individual level. And so we're shifting our primary focus here to truth-telling, to make this platform a clear place to amplify and elevate more voices and more solutions to a greater range of challenges going on in the world right now. Truth-telling is about exploring broader, more universal collective truths and individual truths. Through exploring these truths, we explore different perspectives with open minds and open hearts. We learn from each other so we could do our part in healing, shifting, and transforming problematic aspects of our culture and integrating, evolving, and growing in our personal lives, families, and also communities and the culture at large. This isn't an either or, it's a both and. I'm interested in progress and perspectives, in integrating belief systems, and developing and modeling the practice of holding multiple truths, being less judgmental, and building bridges rather than reinforcing the bubbles that we live in. We can learn a lot from each other, and we need each other. That's one of the core beliefs of the show moving forward. We can learn a lot from each other, and we need each other, as in we need other people. We can't do everything on our own, and we can't know everything just by focusing on our own experiences. We need to be responsible for our own experiences and also respectful of others. But this work can't just be about us and us alone. We can't just be navel-gazing all the time. As I've primarily focused my work on women over the last several years, specifically around healing and transformation by helping women connect to their bodies and honor them as sacred and miraculous, not just objects, as our culture would prefer, I've also deepened my studies and understanding of intersectionalism and how things like patriarchy, misogyny, and other systems of oppression work, and I'm no longer willing to engage with these topics as side notes. They're ever present, and so they need to be ever considered. The contrast of spending the first 29 years of my life living on the East Coast, primarily in and around major cities, New York, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C., that are diverse culturally, creatively, and socioeconomically, and then moving to Southern California, where I've witnessed so much sameness and for the first time truly felt othered, was an important contributing factor to this realization for me over the last few years. I've been able to see and unpack, and I'm still not done, by the way, how these things, patriarchy, misogyny, racism, were in my system too. And on top of that, seeing how much humans share in common and how much we don't know about each other, that would be really helpful to learn. Not only can we all learn so much from others' experiences, but if we hope to create changes and improvements that are sustainable in the world, we need to learn from those experiences. It's not optional. It's not nice to have. It doesn't just look good. It can't just be something we dabble in if we really care as much as we say we care. When I was living in North San Diego, I was around a lot of people, a lot of the time, who were coaches and healers and talked about changing the world often. But they were mostly white, mostly believed the same things, mostly lacked the resiliency, and mostly lacked the emotional maturity to be confronted with the truth of their own illusions. So much spiritual bypass, So much passive-aggressive communication and projection. You know, the kind of folks who don't see color, if you catch my drift. The experience was invaluable. Feeling like I was a total outsider was invaluable. Believing some of the projections and having to get really honest with myself was invaluable. And letting all of that shit go has been invaluable. Where I'm left is feeling a deeper commitment and responsibility to higher, more inclusive truths than the majority of the show's episodes have included in the first 2 years and 8 months of being on air. One of the ways we learn best is through storytelling, which is essentially truth-telling or the sharing of truths, true events that have happened, true impact of these events, true life experiences. One of the greatest shames of our current culture is we seek to discredit that which makes us uncomfortable rather than getting curious about why it makes us uncomfortable and what's actually true there. I'm also a great lover of men, and while I've experienced much disappointment and even emotional abuse at their hands in my life, I hold great compassion for those who treat others poorly because no one who's mentally, emotionally, or spiritually healthy makes those choices. Now, don't confuse this statement with approval or justification for bad behavior. It's more an invitation to compassion over permanent condemnation, mercy even. How do we heal without giving people a chance to make amends and repair the damage they've done? This is not even an ask for tolerance. It's more than okay to not be okay with unjust acts. What's not okay is dehumanizing the people who commit them, because when we do, we're no better than they are. And we're living in a time when lots of horrible deeds and choices performed by men are not just coming to light, but being taken seriously. And I, for one, am not interested in the rise of women coming at the cost of the destruction of men. Accountability, suffering consequences, yes. But dehumanization? That's what got us here where we are in the first place. I keep seeing this quote, "The future is female," and I disagree. Does a healthier future need to have more integrated aspects of the feminine principle? Without a doubt. But men, women, and non-binary people are all capable of integrating that, and we all need to integrate that. This is not a one-gender revolution. We need all the people on deck, and we need to find a way to come together. We need to build bridges, not reinforce our bubbles. But we also need to be safe, considerate of, and responsible for the healing that needs to be done. And I believe that truth-telling and building trust are two primary medicines that can help. All of that said, for anyone worried that the show will be very different, it won't. The truth is, I started moving in this direction months ago. In fact, we've lost a lot of listeners because of it, a fact I'm actually quite pleased about. Because if someone isn't interested in being more considerate, educating themselves, or working problematic beliefs, behaviors, and injustices out of their own system, there are plenty of shows that satisfy their spirit junkiness, focus on the love and light only, pat you on the back for minimal effort without holding you accountable, and that won't make you uncomfortable or ask you to examine how you participate in these things. There's no shortage of blogs, Facebook groups, books, or programs that'll make you feel good about staying in your bubble, perhaps even make you feel superior about it, filled with people who mostly look, think, dress, speak, and compose their Instagram photos all similarly. And to be clear, I'm not making any of that wrong or even judging it. I just see clearly now how I've done it myself, and it wasn't nearly as helpful or evolved as I thought it was. I no longer have a taste for that Kool-Aid. Those things are not what I believe will create long-term solutions, healing, and transformation in our hurting culture. And while the show won't be that different, of course there's a new energy that comes with a new name. And there are new intentions, inevitable expansion and impact. It's a bigger deal than I thought it was, which I didn't realize until I sat down to record the last episode under the old name, as I mentioned in the beginning. I actually had to take a pause to shed some bittersweet tears. Gratitude for what was, excitement and anticipation for what's to come, and sadness for what will no longer be. My women's work and Wild Slow Movement programs, workshops, and teacher trainings aren't going anywhere, but we will be creating more supportive and inclusive programs for all people. The Unconsume Yourself training will be called the Essentials training, and it'll be open to everyone moving forward. We're also creating advanced and mastery level trainings for those who want to go on more of a complete journey. In March, you'll get a first look at one of the tools we're creating. It's a 48-question trust assessment to help you see exactly how much you trust yourself and in life. And if you don't think trust is that big of a deal or important, consider this. Trust affects your experience, behavior, and interactions with others and the world every single day. And a lot of us have a lot of reasons not to trust people. We need to learn how to trust. It's part of the collective healing. It's part of the collective solution. Trust impacts how well we listen to ourselves and to others. Trust helps us to hear the truth when it's being told rather than dismiss or deny it. Trust has always been an integral part of my work. I'm now just bringing it even more to the forefront. Also, based on my experience and accompanying research and study that comes with training people across 3 different industries over the last 15 years, it's pretty clear that all people want the same 3 things: success, happiness, and healthy relationships. By healthy, I mean satisfying relationships that feel good to be in and supportive. There are 3 uniqueness factors that determine how people will define these things, and these are really important to acknowledge. The first is life experiences and someone's culture and background. The second is personality, who someone is and how they're built, and the third is values and beliefs, which people's conditioning factors into. No matter how the uniqueness factors differ, there are 2 things that can help everyone succeed, be happy, and have healthy relationships on their own terms, and those 2 things are truth-telling and trust. The relationship between truth-telling and trust is that we have to tell the truth in order to get to trust. Part of truth-telling isn't just the courage to speak our truth out loud or to others, but to be truthful with ourselves. So that's the lowdown on the vision, the intention, and the direction we're moving in. I'll say a bit more about this later, but I also wanted to spend some time in this episode reflecting on how far we've come. So allow me to geek out on that for a minute here, and also to gush on you. This podcast has changed my life in so many ways. My business, my relationships. Some of my best friends are people who I knew or kind of knew, but we connected more deeply through their interview and have developed amazing friendships since. So many clients and students have found me, my programs, events, trainings, or workshops because they listen to the podcast. So many clients and students have found other teachers, mentors, and guides through the show. I also know of at least 3 businesses that have shifted in trajectory after their owners came on the show. That is such an amazing stat. I can't even measure the amount of connection, transformation, and healing this show has sparked, and I'm so thankful and also a bit overwhelmed by it. Obviously, I couldn't have predicted any of that. I just started it because I knew a lot of amazing people, was connecting with them all the time, and thought it would be neat to record our conversations so other people could benefit from them too. I kind of want to scream to everyone listening and all our guests, look what we did together! Oh my God! So thank you again. As for why I had to change the name, after that conversation with Danielle that I mentioned earlier, I started to feel the nudge, which eventually became a restlessness, and by late November, it was no longer even a choice. The driving desire, as I've already alluded to, is to expand the conversations we have beyond women's empowerment to human empowerment and taking care of the planet by focusing on the truth that is always evolving within us and around us. It's about the potentiality of truth as a highly esteemed value and cornerstone for expansion, for love, for good, for healing, at a time when most people have more on their plates than any one human should, and as a society that's not especially well equipped to deal with that so well. Pockets of society might be, but we are not our bubbles. We're a collective. As I mentioned earlier, the show started with ease because I know so many amazing people. Something I started to realize over time, though, was although the people I knew were amazing, I was operating primarily in my own bubble. And my bubble was pretty privileged, had lots of similar thinking or ideologies, or at least agreeable thinking and concepts. And while the focus on personal development and healing was eye-opening and insightful and useful for a lot of people, we were really leaving out a lot of important topics and issues that matter. We had some blinders on. Then I started to educate myself and expand my own exposure and perspectives beyond who I knew. I realized it was okay to have people on the show whose views didn't reflect my own. It's healthy to disagree with people. And I could still follow my curiosity. I could still hold the possibility of multiple truths. This made me really want to connect with a more diverse range of incredible voices, movers, activists, experts, authors, speakers, educators, even celebrities, even people in various creative and scientific fields, the corporate world, people in other cultures and countries doing all kinds of work. To become educated in a vacuum is not a thorough education, so I wanted to shatter the vacuum. And it's not perfect overnight. Our guests still aren't as diverse as I would like them to be across cultures, industries, and perspectives, but I'm working on it, and we're going to continue working on this. Transitioning the show to be more focused on truth-telling than women's empowerment felt like an important next step. We're still here to inspire listeners, to shine light in dark places, and to honor the fullness and interconnectedness of our human experiences. That's never going to change. What I also decided was to take myself more seriously as an interviewer. That doesn't mean I'm going to change my personality or demeanor. If anything, I feel more myself than ever, and more committed to not holding back anything or worrying about being too much. It just means that behind the scenes, I've been becoming more diligent about who I invite, what I ask, how I prepare, educate myself, and do research, all of which will add quality, value, depth, power, and meaning to the conversations we have here. The views of the guests will not always reflect my views, but I also won't expose you to people whose ignorance is hurtful. I deleted several interviews from the archives because of that last year. Sometimes I'll even intentionally invite people who I don't agree with, not to debate them, but to listen to them. Because that's something that we don't do enough of in this world. Listen to the people we disagree with. Instead, we dismiss them. I'd love to help us stop doing that. I've focused on not doing that so much in my own life a lot, and it's made an enormous difference. It's easy to dismiss people who are different from us. It's revolutionary to listen to them, respect them, honor them, and value them, even when we don't agree. The term peaceful disagreement just came to mind. I think this is how we combat the rampant dehumanization that must exist in order to oppress, abuse, and marginalize people. So we're going to explore that some more. And we're going to keep exploring things like culture, social sciences, communication, human behavior, relationships, parenting, definitions and expressions of success, creativity, and how to trust yourself and life deeply. How to trust others when appropriate, and how to tell the truth as you understand it. We're going to contribute to creating a culture that expects positive growth and change and can become more resilient in the process. A culture that isn't driven as much by fear as faith and curiosity. A culture that's patient, kind, and generous, that judges less and knows how to respond to judgment. A culture that's personally responsible and takes responsibility for being part of a collective as well. And a culture where it's the norm to be gracious and generous with yourself and others as we do all of this. And we're going to do this without losing our sense of humor or compassion. I know it sounds like a tall order, and I'm not making any promises or claims to have all the answers. That's what we're all here for. That's what we co-create together through our interviews, through your feedback, through your shares on social media and your comments on our posts. And we've got time. The issues aren't going anywhere, and neither are we. If anything, we're doubling down on our commitment to participate, to not look away, and to continue doing our best to do better. There's a lot of noise and ignorance in our current culture. And this podcast really is going to aim even more fiercely to cut through that by exploring the truth. My ever-evolving truth, the truth of our guests, your truth as it is and as it can emerge when you listen to the show. Like I said earlier, this is an exploration. We're here to discover ourselves, each other, and how we can learn, grow, and heal and do better collectively. It's interesting, juicy, fun, and sometimes uncomfortable and confronting, which also means it's integrated. And I'm always inviting you with a ton of love and respect to listen with an open mind and an open heart, because you never know when a perspective might land for you or click into place like a puzzle piece you'd been searching for or didn't even know you were missing. Now, I've said a lot of the same stuff in a handful of different ways, and I did that on purpose because I really want it to make sense. I really want it to land, and I really want you to be able to feel into the truths. I really want you to experience the resonance here that is there for you and that maybe isn't there for you as well. So I want to get into some questions now. This is where I'm going to kind of interview myself. So the first question is, when you had the idea to change the name of the show, what went through your mind? Were you resistant at all? The answer is, yeah, I was resistant. But as I mentioned earlier, the way things occur for me are I feel things in my body. You know, so much of my work is embodiment practices and self-trust. And, self-respect and self-love, which means that when I get hunches, when I get hits, when I have intuitions, when I start to feel uneasy about something in my body, I pay attention to that. I journal, I pray, I go on walks in nature, I listen to the ocean, I do all the interesting things I do to get clear guidance. And I take my time and wait until the answers are clear and obvious. That's why it actually took several months for me to finally become restless enough to decide to make the decision. And some of the resistance came from, I'm a human being. I don't want to disappoint people. I don't want to lose people. But I am willing to do those things in the pursuit of higher truth and higher service. How I chose the name, I looked around for inspiration in the sense of who are the leaders that I really respect and I really admire. Not necessarily who I want to model myself after. I'm not really interested in modeling myself after others, but who do I respect and admire, and what do they have in common? And those of you who listen to the show know that I have tons of love and tons of respect for Brene Brown. So I was cruising around on her website one day, and I noticed that she shifts focus every time she writes a new book. She also creates new trainings all the time, but the two core things that are always woven through all of her work are courage and vulnerability. They're like her guideposts. So I got to brainstorming with my project manager and looking at all of the work that I've done over the last several years to see, do I have guideposts? Do I have 2 or 3 major things that are always woven through everything, even if the focus is a little bit different? And the 2 things that were absolutely there and that were glaringly obvious were truth-telling and trust. So what's cool is the name change was already decided when a miraculous thing happened more recently. We all, well, probably most of us by now, have heard Oprah's recent speech from the Golden Globes, or at least seen the quotes going around on social media. One of the most popular quotes was, What I know for sure is that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we all have. What a divine wink. An unintentional endorsement from Oprah. Couldn't ask for anything better than that, right? The next question I'm going to ask myself is, what role does truth play in your life and your work? My answer is, it's everything. And it's not just about my truth. It's about always considering what the highest truth of a situation is. What's the highest and best for everyone involved, not just me or people like me? And how can I align my actions, choices, and behaviors with that? It's also about letting go of the need to be right and instead focusing on the need to do better and be a more caring, responsible, loving, generous, kind, and compassionate human. What can listeners expect moving forward? The show is about walking the bridge between truth-telling and trust-building. It's about having the courage to have conversations that range from uplifting and illuminating to uncomfortable and confrontational. And I don't care who you vote for. I'm not trying to press my beliefs on anyone. But through the episodes on the show, I want to demonstrate what truth fully lived looks like. The aim is to be a fertile platform for truth exploration and identifications of and empowerment through personal truth as we stay open so that we can connect with collective truths. We're going to value openness, kindness, respect, generosity. We're going to create space for each other to do better, shine light in dark places, and stay open to different perspectives. We're also going to hold our exploration with compassion and curiosity. On Mondays, we're still going to post interviews, and on Sundays, we're still going to post sermons. And the sermons will be the more personal and wild soul essence episodes that they already are. They'll revolve more around my personal experiences and musings, while interviews will focus more on our guests. No episode of this show is ever meant for everyone. Every episode is always meant for whoever needs it on the right day at the right time, and you never know when that might be for you. As I've already said a couple times, not all guest views will reflect my own, and that will be intentional. We can't learn, grow, heal, or improve by staying in our own comfortable bubbles with all of our people who look, think, or live exactly how we do. We're living in a miraculous and complex time. Most people have more on their plates than any one person should, and this show is going to be about navigating that, telling the truth as we understand it, and always reserving the right to change our minds when we discover something new about life, how things work, and about ourselves. In this show, you're going to get the full range of topics, everything from health, communication, money, success, parenting, desire, and spirituality, to making pivots and transitions in life, and topics related to psychology, storytelling, gender and race issues, emotional intelligence, sacred activism, and more. You'll also get my full range. I'm a very practical, grounded, and intellect-oriented person, and I'm also highly intuitive, have a deep spiritual practice, and love to study, learn, and find facts and evidence to back up my hunches, my ideas, my mystical musings, and all the esoteric teachings that I like to study as well. We can learn a lot from each other, and we need each other. So, my loved ones, that is the scoop on the new name and what you can expect. I said this in our Sunday sermon yesterday, and I'll add it here too for those who don't listen to those. I'm remembering my last big transition back in 2013 when I started evolving beyond only talking about health and fitness and incorporating more topics of personal growth, psychology, spirituality, self-love, the divine feminine, and embodiment. What happened then is I lost some people who wanted me to stay the same. And I suspect we may lose some people in this transition too, and that's okay. I always trust that everything has cycles and seasons, and the right people always show up exactly for what they need. One of my greatest values in business and with everything I create is to focus on service. That allows me to ditch my ego and remember not to make it about me, but what wants to come through, what needs to be said that I'm not afraid to say, and for making space for more people's truths to be heard, and how to best be a force. You've heard me say this many, many times, for expansion, for love, for good, and for healing. Also for transformation, forgiveness, and compassion on the planet during a very great time of need that we're in right now. So that's what I'm going to keep doing. Thank you as always for your time, your care, your generosity in sharing the show with your friends and family, with your coworkers, whether you do that privately or on social media. Thank you for using it to heal and consider new perspectives. Thank you for staying open, for listening, and for continuing to do your best. Thank you for showing up so we can keep on going together. We can keep having conversations that matter. We can keep doing our own work and supporting those around us as they do theirs as well. We have got this, y'all. Have a very truth-filled week, and I'll talk to you next time.